Good stuff. So welcome all those who've joined us so far. Hopefully we'll get a few more people coming in. I won't do introductions now. I think there's probably just a few too many of us to all have personal introductions. But what would be good is when we come to the discussion session in a bit, if you could sort of introduce yourself before talking at that would be great. Just your name and affiliation. Welcome to this session. This is one of a number of our diary sessions. We've been doing it quite regularly over recent plenaries. We'll start off with me just giving you a very quick introduction to what our diary is and the kind of things that the group discusses. We'll then go and move to Anwar Vahed, who will introduce the context of the conversation and our speakers. We may not have Professor Wafula. He was only drafted in at the last minute and he may not be aware of this himself yet. So we may just have the two speakers, but once they've introduced themselves and given a conversation about some of the things that they're working on, we will then open it up for a discussion. And it'd be great if all of you in the audience could join in for that as well. And finally, as an anticlimax, you'll have me again, but I promise I won't say too much and we'll close the session. Now this is interesting. I can't see my own slide text. That's bad. Okay, so the Research Data Architectures for Research Institutions, or RDARI, is an interest group primarily concerned with the technical architectures for managing research data within universities and other multidisciplinary research institutions. The group seeks to provide insight into the approaches being taken to the development of architectures and their success or otherwise. So we've covered a number of different topics in the past, things like data retention, middleware, bridging the whole data and computation infrastructures, and other ones that you can see there. What we tend to do as an interest group is go through different sort of topics of interest and then potentially spin out other interest groups or working groups from that. So we tend to take a fairly high level, sort of discursive kind of introductory presentations, conversations and stuff, and then gauge what kind of interest we're getting on these kind of things. We are dealing with a slightly different kind of topic today, that the topic isn't necessarily a specific technology, but rather the issue of how these kind of architectures for institutions can best be applied in the Global South, and in particular, this one, Africa and South America. We're going to be looking at some of the challenges that are faced in the Global South, some of the emerging kind of ideas and innovations that can potentially be used to tackle some of those challenges. Architectures, goes without saying, examples of regional and institutional projects, and we're addressing some of the issues about how regional and international exchange can help addressing those challenges. So I will now pass on to Anwar and stop sharing. Let me just close that. Now, do we have Anwar?
No, I've not seen.
Who was here and who wasn't when I had my slides up on the screen. So all of a sudden I can now see we have no Anwar as yet. I'll just give him a call or something, Keith, and just check he's okay.
Yes,
and hasn't got confused by time zones. I've managed to get confused by time zones before. It wouldn't be the first time
I'll shoot him an email now, and if you don't mind progressing in the meantime, that's probably the best way to progress. So.
Okay. Well, the first speaker who is here is Madaya Vakari. So, Madaya, if you want to introduce yourself quickly and take the hot seat, do feel free to share the screen for any slides you have, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks. So let me share the screen first. Can everybody see me and hear me fine?
Perfect.
Excellent. So I'm Mattia Vaccari, and I'm an astronomer by background. Been a research professor for about 10 years, working in Cape Town, first at the University of the Western Cape, and more recently at the University of Cape Town, where I now serve as e-research director, so I'm in the research support staff domain. And today I'm going to tell you a little bit about our work at IA, the Inter-University Institute for Data-Intensive Astronomy, and particularly how we leveraged the ILIFU cloud computing facility to create a science gateway for data processing and data sharing in astronomy and other fields. Most of what I'll say is down to our tech team, in particular Professor Rob Simmons and Dr. David Akema, which should be roped in. I mean, if you have any questions. So in the domain of astronomy in particular and radio astronomy, in particular, we've recently seen an avalanche of growth in terms of data volumes, and here you can see a quick primer to the size of a typical data set in radio astronomy since the beginning of the century. So we've moved from about terabyte to a petabyte in a matter of about 10 years. And this is largely driven by telescopes that are paving the way for the so-called Square Kilometre Array, or the SKA. And these are telescopes that will be largely deployed in Africa, where we thus found ourselves in a position to have to leapfrog, I mean, a number of existing technologies because of the rapid increase in data rates. I mean, from effectively zero, I mean, to petabytes and eventually exabytes size. I mean, which we're looking at as the full SKA comes into being toward the end of the current decade. Now, this has changed a lot of what we knew in terms of the sociology of radio astronomy. It used to be the case that people engaged with radio observatories traveled to the observatory and brought back whether a hard disk or a tape disk drive with the data, processed data, published a paper or two, and then went back to the observatory to get some more. Now, obviously, the big change, I mean, involved in the big data revolution in radio astronomy is that much of the key science can only be achieved with the large-scale observing programs that are executed by global collaborations of researchers that must be able to work on the data in a collaborative manner. And at IDEA, I mean, starting in 2015, we've engaged in developing a big data research platform, which we call ILIFU, for one of the South Africans' native languages, isiXhosa, a word for cloud. And we've created an infrastructure by bringing in funding, I mean, from key astronomy and bioinformatics research projects, and involving the national government through DIRISA in order to create a critical mass of equipment, I mean, that we could leverage to create our computational services. So through a couple of previous incarnations, I mean, the Africa Research Cloud prototype and the IDEA Cloud, we eventually were able to roll out ILIFU in 2018. So it's been running for about 5-6 years at full capacity. And we are running it out of the University of Cape Town data center, and we are running it based on, effectively on OpenStack and on open source technologies that can be replicated at scale, rather easily on any kind of off-the-shelf hardware. So our staff, I mean, is mostly engaged in providing support to the end users, because we are not really developing code of our own, but mostly, I mean, running cloud instances on our own hardware rather than running it on commercial providers. This has led them into a usage of about to a user base of about 500 users, 60% of them based in South Africa and 40% or so across the world, which is a testament to the power of the radio telescopes that are now hosted in South Africa, so that a lot of our international colleagues, I mean, want to have a go at being able to process data on the ILIFU cloud. This is really in preparation for what we call the SKA Regional Center Network, which is going to be hosted across the world, I mean, by the well, 15 countries or so that are currently a member of this new intergovernmental organization called the SKA. And of course, I mean, in the context of this further development, being that in order to extract knowledge from information, we would need, I mean, to be able to rope together, I mean, numerical simulations, observed data, and artificial intelligence and data processing tools, all running in a coherent manner, I mean, through a federation of different high-performance computing infrastructure. In order to pave the way, I mean, for federated computing, we have worked with the EGI Foundation Consortium in Europe, I mean, as part of an EU project. And as part of this project, I mean, the ELIFU facility has been accessible via the AGI check-in, I mean, for about 4 years. And we've also become part of the AGI Cloud Federation of the production one, I mean, in 2022. Now, most of the EOSC systems can be accessed, I mean, via the AGI Cloud Federation. And we have created, instance host groups, I mean, that can be managed by individual research teams by the AGI co-manage. So we effectively tried to use this project, I mean, to exploit the capabilities of federation as it is currently implemented by the AGI Federation capabilities. And the groups of users, I mean, that are running in the cloud, I mean, can be linked to OpenStack tenants, so that members of ELIFU groups, I mean, can access tenants of different clouds, I mean, from the ELIFU dashboard. So this has largely been a prototyping experiment in order to demonstrate, I mean, the capabilities of the cloud, but we're looking forward to deploy it when, the SKA regional centers in Europe and in South Africa get up and running. Over the last year, I mean, we've focused on trying to bring together, I mean, the different tools that we have offered to users over the years through ELIFU in what we call Science Gateway. And the concept of Science Gateways, I mean, is not new. Of course, we would like to bring together a set of web-based tools that are useful to a given community of users, and ideally, I mean, to a large community of interdisciplinary users. And in our case, I mean, we've worked quite closely with astronomy tools, and thus we have prioritized tools that are useful to the astronomy community. But a lot of these tools, as I mentioned, are open, and some of them, I mean, we actually develop and release open source ourselves so that they provide support to a wider range of users at this stage. Crucially, bioinformaticians, which are another very large community in South Africa, but also people working in general computer science. This is what the current homepage, login page looks like. I mean, through Sapphire, I mean, we've got single sign-on to the IDEA Science Gateway, and this is what, I mean, the dashboard looks like. I mean, we recognize, I mean, some of the obvious, some of the usual suspects like Jupyter Labs to run code from the browser, Slurm to run jobs in the background, and Globus to transfer data, as well as some more informative tools in terms of usage data and status of the cloud. Data presentation and access, I mean, more pertinently for this session, I mean, was never quite intended, I mean, to be a goal of IDEA and ELIFU, because the idea was that together with the national facilities, we would provide support for processing, and then storage, I mean, would be handled downstream. But obviously, I mean, as it is often the case, I mean, there is some scope creep, so we have had several requests, I mean, to host data releases. So we started looking into ways, I mean, to host data releases as part of ELIFU and as part of our federation with other facilities. And in this context, we have worked with South African National Cyber Infrastructure System and with DIRISA that Anwar, I mean, will hopefully speak about if he's joined us in the meantime. And so our aim is to create, in the long term, I mean, a focus group to better identify what forms of data presentation and access will be most helpful to the astronomy community, and to deliver them in combination with our partners, both locally and internationally. And for now, I mean, we have started looking into, well, a public data portal placeholder that can store, I mean, data as provided, I mean, by API, so not an interactive system per se. We've also provided, I mean, simple file views, I mean, that people that do have access to the system can access, which are good enough if you know what a file is and its name, but it's not, but it's definitely not good for searching. In the long term, we are looking at platforms that are deployed by, for instance, the Canadian Astronomy Data Center. I mean, through CANFOR, a Canadian organization. I mean, that does have, I mean, well, a long-standing history of data archiving, and that has a pretty well-developed data archive system that is being considered by the SKA organization. So we've been talking to them, I mean, about running things that are slightly more developed. But of course, in the meantime, I mean, we've been working with DIRISA, I mean, through a collaborative program. I mean, actually, DIRISA is funding us, I mean, to provide some of the technology, some of the expertise that we developed as part of the Idea Science Gateway to make all the IDEA systems accessible through Sapphire, and to work to make sure that we have a common view across as many DIRISA systems in place that are currently in place as possible during the course of this project. And I mean, the end goal is to be able to provide an NSA-wide role-based authorization system so that we can access data on different systems. I mean, at IDEA, DIRISA, and perhaps also at our Center for High Performance Computing in South Africa. As part of this discussion, well, a few years back, I mean, during COVID, I mean, we ran what, an SAU dialogue facility project, set of workshops, basically, focusing on the idea of the South African Open Science Cloud. And we aimed to learn what had been done in Europe, I mean, with EOSC. And we started, I mean, conceiving this idea of an IDEA DIRISA federation, which we have since tackled. One of the key contributors to this project was Dave Peters, I mean, who I think I've seen on the call. And currently, the South African Open Science Cloud is being relooked at. I mean, also as part of the continental strategy for an African Open Science platform. What came out of our work at the time were plans, I mean, to have application catalogs and repositories in place. So currently we have a simple repository on IDEA and ILIFU that we will be adding to the gateway, and that we will make accessible, I mean, to other federated sites in South Africa. But we're also looking at more advanced systems, such as the one, I mean, by CANFOR and the CHDC. So hopefully what we do hope is that further collaboration with other facilities in South Africa and elsewhere, I mean, driven by the priorities of astronomy and bioinformatics, but it can be rolled out to other disciplines, will attract, I mean, future funding, I mean, both for hardware and for, development and user support, so that we can actually bring this idea of a South African Open Science Cloud to fruition. So I will leave you with some conclusions. I think I've already scanned through most of them. I think the message is that, our project was by and large, I mean, created with an eye toward providing a high performance, high throughput computing facility for the astronomy and bioinformatics community. But we have now, after 5 good years, I mean, and hundreds of scientific papers being produced on ILIFU, we have come full circle, I mean, to try and looking into what facilities and what user support and what human capacity development, I mean, may need to be developed in order to turn the science data products of MeerKAT and of the SKA into a full research data management environment and community. So I'm looking forward, I mean, to more engagements, I mean, with others at the session, and also for some advice about how we can further this work in the context of the global Open Science Cloud and of the European Science Cloud. Thanks.
I'll have to do a round of applause on the chats like this, but I think if we can all sort of imagine one sort of, I don't know if there's a clapping icon that people can bring up or anything like that. But thank you very much for that presentation. And I see we've been joined by Anwar. So I think on that note, I shall hand over to Anwar. So Anwar, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and perhaps saying a little bit about your role, and we will take questions to both of our presenters, I think, and maybe Anwar himself, after we've had the presentations, and then we'll open it up. But Anwar, if you want to take the reins from here, that would be great. However, it is quite possible that Anwar is encountering some technical difficulties at the moment. So maybe with that in mind, let us move on.
James,
Yeah.
James, we have just been joined by Professor Muliaro Wafula. So he has been able to make it. So that's great news. So I think there's the question which order we do the presentations. The original plan was to do Africa first and then South America. So if we want to keep that order, then we'd have Muliaro first.
Let's do that. So Muliaro, if you want to take the reins.
Thank you for having me. Yes, I can go if you give me the opportunity.
Brilliant. Okay, yeah, if you want to take over, that's great. If you've feel free to share your screen if you've got slides. And thanks for joining us at short notice.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me do that. On the screen. Are you able to see it?
Yep.
Yes, we can see your
great.
screen. It's just not in screen sharing mode yet. That's all. As in not in presentation mode yet.
I'm clicking on it to behave. I hope it does. Is it okay now?
Yeah, that looks great. Thank you. Yeah.
Right. First of all, thank you for giving us this opportunity to participate in this. And Dr. Siamo told me about it. I wasn't the one that had been designated for the opportunity, but because we are all talking about a part of the same thing, so it was okay that I go ahead. I'm just going to share a very short activity that we have engaged as African Open Science Platform, East African Node, and with regard how to deal with data and infrastructure. Early this year, we managed to get to engage with the Global Open Science Cloud, and in fact, go ahead and sign an MOU. As you're aware, the African Open Science Platform is hosted at the ICAD. I think it's misspelled here. ICAD is the African Institute for Capacity Development, which is an intergovernmental organization based in Nairobi, and particularly hosted at Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology, where I am an associate professor in computing department. And what we did is to figure out how to federate the African Open Science Cloud East African Node. We have a cloud, a small cloud that we call the seed cloud. And then in the spirit of open science and open data, where we want to avoid duplication of tools, resources, and capacity. So we agreed on areas that we can federate with the Global Open Science Cloud. So in the process, we have, as you can see, we have a website. You can check it out between the two clouds. And what we've done is to federate these two and make available, kind of build communities at trusted research community, or creating a trusted research environment, which you have to authenticate in a federated manner, so that once you are a member of either of these two clouds, there are certain resources that you can access, including data. So we specifically chose the SDG. We as East African Node, we chose the SDG data because we've been informed that SDGs have been lagging behind. And if you look very well, we've some data that is now common on these two federated clouds that has been published. And actually, we are going to publish more because as we speak, we, as the East African Node, have gotten the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, which is our national statistical system that collects all the indicators, data around all the indicators, and they are going to avail to us through this cloud 165 indicator data on SDGs. Some are very comprehensive, and we want to share analytics, share a comparison, because some of these things that we are collecting data inform very global solutions. So if you checked out here on this chart that was presented during the Visa Africa conference we held under AOSP as one of our activities, we were glad to have Professor Jiang Hui, who is from CAS, just giving us what they had come out with the performance so far with the SDGs. And if you look at it, the red is so dominant. So many are stagnated or just regression. Those that are doing fair are very few. And of course, there's a lot of areas where we have insufficient data on all the SDGs, G1 all the way to G17. So we think that by federating and exposing this data, we will make available an interesting attraction to science communities, research communities to be involved in this. So this was the team that was involved in some of the activities early this year. The picture you see there, that is where we are, the African Open Science Platform. Our offices are held at ICAD. That's the location. So thank you very much. That's all I had, and I thought I could share with you.
Thank you very much. If we could try and manage another one of those virtual rounds of applause. I think everyone did pretty well last time. I need to find the button still. I'm not used to using Zoom.
Oh, you mean you didn't catch anything?
No, that was perfect. Don't worry, we heard it all. Just trying to give a collective but silent round of applause. But thank you so much for that.
Sorry.
Okay, now Anwar, are you able to join the presentation, or shall I just move us on to the next speaker?
I am able to join. Sorry, being a little bit held up. My apologies.
No problem.
Yeah. So I think the next speaker, let me just check here quickly.
So I realise, having just joined, you may not be too aware of the order. So we've actually got Lautaro Matas coming up next.
Yeah, I think we can go on to the next speaker, but I'm a little bit battling a flu attack right now. I don't know, perhaps you can continue if you don't mind.
Sure. No, that's fine. Yeah, if you're suffering a bit at the moment, yeah. So if yeah, Lautaro, if you want to come on now and start presenting, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Thank you for the invitation to participate in this session. I will share my screen in a moment. Can you see my presentation?
Yep. It's full
Perfect.
screen.
Well, thank you very much. I will be presenting in the behalf of La Referencia. I am the Executive and Technical Director of La Referencia, but I also will be presenting in behalf of Washington Segundo from the Brazilian Institute of Science and Technology Information from Brazil. He didn't make it because actually he's receiving at the General Secretary of RDA in Brazil at this very moment. So I will be talking about La Referencia. I want to give a brief context about what La Referencia is. We are a Latin American network of open science formed by the government authorities of science and technology. Originally, the La Referencia was created as a network, as a repository network, but later turned into to be in charge of the different aspects of the open science. And those are the countries of La Referencia. We have 12 countries from South America, for Central America, plus Spain, because the tradition, the language, and around scientific collaboration also. So, and I want to point to 3 important aspects of La Referencia as an initiative that is related with some of the things that we are going to talk today. So, La Referencia works as a forum for policy and technical discussion between the countries. We don't have an European Union around or a European Commission for funding, so we are self-sustained, and we work as a forum for political, policy, and technical discussion among the countries, but also for discussions with external partners and international networks. So one of our main goals from the beginning was to give visibility to the regional scientific production at global level. We have a federated structure, so we have national nodes that act as aggregators at national level, bringing all the contents or metadata actually from the institutional repositories, data repositories, literature repositories. And we collect those national nodes and we interoperate with other global or regional infrastructures such OpenAIRE, Core, and so on. And finally, we did all this aggregation and quality control and enrichment of our metadata by developing our own platform, which is open for everyone to use. Actually, it's being used outside the region in Portugal and some African countries. And this is the result of 9 years of collaborative development. And we always keep improving and adding other functionalities such as usage statistics, aggregation, and other kind of valuable services for our region. So I want to make a brief description of some research data developments around the region at institutional and at national level. There are a lot of things coming in around research data. There are institutions and national institutions deploying data repositories, mostly Dataverse. As far as we know, we are collaborating in order to exchange knowledge about training and facilitating this process between the institutions and the countries. We keep aggregating research data, metadata, and building value-added services, and I will show some aggregators. And also, we are working on training and implementing data management plans in the region. So this is the La Referencia aggregator, which is the regional aggregator. I will be very fast here because I want to use the time for talking about other thing. This is the Brazilian portal of publication and scientific data metadata with more than 4 million items. And this resilient network also involves a national research data repository. You can access there. We have another national initiative in Uruguay of a national repository of open data, and we have actually several these kind of initiatives around the region. I'm just mentioning some of them. No, I'm not going to be exhaustive. So this is another data repository in the Universidad de Rosario in Argentina, and so on. And as part of the collaboration with RDA, we have been doing a set of webinars and bringing RDA materials to our regions. One of the barriers that we detected in the past for training and getting more information was the language, of course. So we did a huge effort with some countries, bringing resources to make translation of the materials and also give trainings with online interpretations and bringing different data stewardships experts and to give some training to our region. Actually, we built a central portal to concentrate and bring all those videos and materials in Spanish to share with the community. Now I want to move to for me, one of the key aspects of the key challenges for Latin America, and I think the other regions also, around not only research data interoperability, but open science, in the open science landscapes in general. That is the PIDs, the persistent identifying coverage in our region. And I do know that is something that also is an issue in Africa, because we are collaborating with some African partners around this. So if we look at the metadata in Latin America, only 20% of the repository contents have DOI identifiers. And that's a problem that impacts even in the inclusion of those contents, those items in open sources like OpenAlex for the moment, and also another COKI in Australia, different kind of open science monitors, graph, that only work for the moment using and grabbing information and metadata from DOI agencies such as Crossref and DataCite. So it's not only a problem for interoperability, but a problem for the representation and the correct coverage of all those monitors and graph about our region. So we are actively working on that since 2 years ago with a project with my colleague Washington, in the Brazilian Institute of Science and Technology. We work together thanks to the funding of the IBIC in Brazil. We start working on a project. First, the proof of concept about the idea of creating a decentralized implementation of the ARC identifier. The Archival Resource Key Identifiers is a well-known and existing identifier that is used all around the world. Maybe it's less known than DOI, but it's actually a very powerful and flexible persistent identifier. So we are working on this first implementation of a technology. We want to create a decentralized service, a decentralized assign and resolve for persistent identifier in other regions, planned as a public good network with no one acting as an owner of the data, no one acting as a single provider, with no single point of failure. And for that, we are using a very specific blockchain technology. And this is not related with cryptocurrency. This is not related with high intensive GPU or CPU resources. We are working on consensus, environment friendly consensus algorithms. We are working on a private permissioned sidechain to do this. We are not relying on existing blockchain networks. So the idea of this model is to create the nodes in the institutions of different levels, national institutions, universities, research agencies. By deploying these nodes, you can contribute to host the network for storing the information, but also to resolving and responding to the services. I will not go in deep of this architecture, but I also only want to say that for us and for our region, maybe it's easy to deploy a node and provide a node, and in that sense, help to build a reliable network than paying for memberships or even committing to the institution to pay in dollars, or even yes, that is the main barrier for us, like committing paying in dollars and sustaining that in time. So we have this roadmap. We have been working for the last 1.5 years, beginning with a proof of concept paper that is published in Zenodo. And later we work on a pilot and some extensive tests. So we are not moving to launch a first beta implementation with real data and real service for the Brazilian context. We want to massively assign dark identifiers to all the harvested institution of that aggregator that I shown a moment ago, that 4.5 million of records. Do that at aggregator level, and later provide a mechanism to enrich the metadata at the repository level. And of course, implement a universal resolution independent of the node for redirecting the global ARC resolving system to this network. And in the meantime, we want to provide metadata access for each digital object besides the access to the digital linked object, because in the midterm or long term, we want to build a decentralized metadata storage and preservation system, but this is for the future. So in the second half of the year, we are committed to achieve these first 4 points in July. And later in the year, we want to conduct some pilots with a Brazilian institution, because we are developing DSpace7 Dataverse and OJS plugins for assigning these darks directly from the repository. We want to have studies and reports about this idea of decentralizing the metadata storage also. We continuously are publishing and disseminating results in journal conferences. And of course, all the code will be published for the global community, because this project was originated in EVICT in Brazil. Now, La Referencia is supporting that project and working the project. I was personally involved from the very first moment, but now La Referencia is supporting thanks to the SCOS, this cost cycle. We are receiving funding from different institutions around the world for 2 projects, one related with usage statistics and this other with identifiers. So, of course, we will discuss the governance and how we will sustain that dark because we want to expand this Brazilian experience to all Latin America. So we will discuss how to do that, how to sustain that, and how to make the governance. Of course, La Referencia has a key role to play in that because we already have a public good software and platform infrastructures, and we believe that this is the way to do it. So that will be all. Thank you very much. I will be happy to answer and discuss around this.
That's all right. And I think I've now figured out how to use the silent applause button myself. So if people want to show their appreciation for that excellent presentation, that'd be great. And very interesting to hear about the actual kind of solutions to some of the issues you're facing there with the DARC identifiers, which sounds really good. Right. At this point, I will open the floor to anyone who has any questions for any or indeed all of our presenters that we've had today. Either feel free to put your hand up or ask a question in the chat if that's easier. I will try and bring up the chat myself so I can see if anything is going in there. Rory.
Well, James, as usual, I have about 20 questions. So
I've been hoarding some of mine as well, but yeah, go ahead, Rory.
I'll step back. But yeah, those are all three really fantastic presentations. So thank you very much. That was really, really exciting. So yeah, so I'll just limit myself to one question now, and if there's time, I'll jump in with other ones. Yeah, so my first question is for Matteo, and I think this was also relevant to the second, but I'll ask you. I'd love to learn more about your federation with EGI, which is a generalist research cloud, if you will, and you're doing quite a domain-specific one. And I'm involved now with two other generalist research clouds. One is the New England Research Cloud in New England, and the other is the new Alliance Cloud Connect pilot in Canada. And I know both of them are interested in federation as well. So I'd be, if you could talk in just a little bit more detail about why you wanted to do the federation with EGI, what the objectives are, how it's working, and what you see, what your experience has been so far.
Hi, sorry, I'm back now. So would you like to, oh, sorry, I guess you're done. And so our experience, well, with EGI started as part of a visit by EGI to South Africa during one of the eResearch Africa. I think it was in 2019 when Tiziana Ferrari visited us. So the idea is that we started working with them because the vast majority of big, of high performance computing work in Europe, including several of the countries that are involved with the square kilometer array revolved around the EGI infrastructure. And we focused on mostly on authentication tools and authorization tools, which used to be provided by the old school grid systems, but we've been working with more recent, web-based federation tools in order to make it slightly more seamless to work with them. So our experience has been very positive in that. We literally put in very little effort in this. I managed to get things to work reasonably out of the box. The main goal was to demonstrate the principle for the square kilometer array regional centers, and to demonstrate that it could work on our commodity hardware without any substantial modifications. So we basically reached this goal without actually ever needing to make use of the EGI cloud itself, in a manner of speaking. I mean, so we did create authentication and authorization tools, but we never did more than running workloads based on testing of our tools. The end goal would be to create, I mean, joint projects, I mean, where actual compute and storage are shared within these federated tools. But that was really, I mean, a pilot project, I mean, to demonstrate that we could do that. And the expansion of this study, I mean, has been carried out, I mean, with our national partners in Indivisa, which Anwar can speak to. So the idea would be to try and extend that, I mean, to different facilities that are, well, running on South African soil and, hopefully, I mean, in Africa or across the African continent, I mean, with the help of further AGI projects. I should also mention that, another goal we had at the time was to establish, I mean, more extensive, I mean, collaborations with AGI. That hasn't quite materialized so far. I mean, partly because, well, COVID happened in the meantime. We have recently restarted this discussion about working with AGI when Bruce Becker, I mean, joined EGI again, I mean, after a stint in the private industry, and we just had a couple of telecoms about trying to get EGI support to run some further pilot studies at the University of Cape Town, which runs a dedicated HPC and research data storage system. So we have had some early discussions with them about trying to work together with some of the AGI tools to share compute and storage in a seamless manner. I mean, using our UCT credentials. So I think we haven't been as active, I mean, over the last year or two, I mean, in this domain, but we would like to do more with that, I mean, going forward.
Thank you very much. Just two quick follow-up. If I understood correctly, it seems like there's both functional synergies and complementarity that can be exploited by collaborating, and then also it opens the door to joint projects at kind of a researcher level. Would that be an accurate takeaway?
Yes, absolutely. And the SKA data processing is obviously a big can of worms, and it's been slowly developed, I mean, by the SKA organization. So we sort of developed these tools as pilots, I mean, for the things that should become run of the mill during the deployment of the SKA. But of course, I mean, in so doing, I mean, we have created tools that can be used, I mean, by general purpose science tools that are more widely used, I mean, across the South African community.
Thank you.
Any other questions from anyone in the virtual room? Perhaps I can ask one. So Lautaro identified PIDs as being a key challenge that in that context was being faced. And I was wondering, Muliaro and Mattia, if you've got, I mean, what would, in your context in which you're working, what would you say are the biggest sort of infrastructure challenges that you face? Muliaro, perhaps starting with you.
Thank you very much. Yep. Okay, sorry. Oh, what's happening? All right. What I would say is that we need to create, first of all, the trust. It's not just to get the piece of infrastructure around, and also to open up the spirit of federating and connecting, because it appears a lot of this infrastructure, when we map it out, we find a considerable infrastructure that is not being fully used to capacity. So it isn't that we don't have infrastructure to do the bare minimum that we need to do. So I think the greatest job we have, I would say, in Africa as at now, is to federate these pieces of infrastructure and to create trust so that those who have either data now, they can share across. If they have tools, they can share across, and also then build capacity around the infrastructure that is there. So I would say if we can come up with strategies that can unlock that option for us, will be a very good step. And also one enabling concern is the policies and regulatory frameworks that understand the various jurisdictions, either per sector, whether in health, in agriculture, and so on. That in itself will also ease the use of the same facilities, because even where there is will, we get stuck because we tend to take too long, or there is an absence of a policy. So if we can go ahead and create the policy frameworks that are malleable, easy to use in that space, will be very good. By sharing the ones that are already working, and also coming and interrogating the ones we would like to have in Africa, especially, you know, where we are trying to build this, will be very, very helpful. It should not be forgotten. As we build the physical infrastructure, I think as at now, the enabling environment from a policy and regulatory framework is a bigger concern. Not to forget standards. I've seen PIDs, I've seen DOIs, we've seen Brazil are doing very well, and they are expanding the use of those standards. We need to grow the same across, so that then we will utilize what we have, and the communities will be happy with us. Thank you.
Do you want to say what you think that your biggest infrastructure challenge is? You notice he's got a story or two from what he's saying in the chat.
Yeah, sorry. I was gonna add that. Well, I mean, firstly, I'd like to congratulate, I mean, Lautaro and colleagues, I mean, for this dark thing. I've realized that it was presented not far from my hometown in Stellenbosch last year, but I missed that. So I wonder if there are well, if there is a worry that there might be several competing projects in this space, or whether there is room for collaboration, because it sounds like, well, it sounds like an excellent idea, and I think it should be done, I mean, globally, really, in order to be able to reach critical mass. No, in our very small South African context, I mean, even a simple thing like hosting a national repository for PhD and well, MSc thesis, so an ETD repository was well, failed at some point, I mean, because the National Research Foundation, I mean, decided to discontinue that. So we're now back to square one, I mean, where individual universities are maintaining that. So that's an interesting story about even in relatively well-resourced countries like South Africa, where well, several universities have got access to DOI minting and the like. I mean, things can go wrong when there is not well, a long-term digital preservation strategy. And so we're currently grappling with the problem of how to do this, I mean, both institutionally and, well, we have a DOI-enabled data repository that is running on Figshare, but we're trying to think, I mean, beyond that, and how to do long-term digital preservation for data that is not necessarily open. I mean, such as some of the data that we digitize, I mean, out of our library, and we are looking at ways, I mean, to make it more sustainable. Currently, I mean, in our case, I mean, DOIs still seem to be, I mean, the lesser evil, and and do not seem, I mean, to be a large component of the total cost. But obviously, I mean, they are not a one-size-fits-all solution, and sometimes, I mean, they are also well defunct after, I mean, some institutions, I mean, that were minting them, I mean, go out of business. So it is an interesting problem that we're still grappling with, and I think that the example of La Referencia is an excellent example of a regional, well, continental collaboration that we would like to build upon. So I'd be very happy, I mean, to learn more about DARC, and particularly whether, I mean, there are opportunities, I mean, to be involved, or perhaps, I mean, to be involved in some of the testing for some of the DSpace plugin, for instance. We would very much like to run that as part of our DSpace instance, if possible. Because that's, well, DSpace is what we were loosely considering for a national repository of ETDs, and I think it would be very useful if we were able to run a pilot on using DARC on DSpace.
All right. Is there anything stopping the ARC identifiers taking over the world?
Sure. May I?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, no, I want to thank Mattia for his considerations and interest in our project. I will be in the next open repositories also, but I would like to offer my contact to Mattia if you want to talk more about La Referencia and how we did it, and anyone about how we did, we are doing this continental effort, and how we actually sustain that, and how we are building out these kind of services. I'll be happy to receive your emails and either have a conversation about this. So thank you, Mattia, for your interest and your considerations.
Do we have any other questions from the audience? Matti.
So I'm Matti Hekkonen from RDA Europe, and I think this was, of course, very interesting to sort of see sort of genuine intercontinental collaborations, and in a way sort of getting a little bit out of the European sphere. A couple of interesting things that I picked up with sort of self-interest in mind. You mentioned that the interest group has a habit of spinning out working groups. So I was wondering what might be sort of the next thing in a way coming out. I mean, I picked up some of the conversation topics that seem to be promising ones. And then the other one, just sort of wanted to make sure that you are aware of the RDA Tiger initiative that can actually provide support for launching working groups. So, I mean, I think in a way topics would be interesting in a way so that we can be ready to see what is coming down the pipeline.
Yeah, sure. So what we've done in the past, and we've had a couple of suggestions, not all of them have materialized, but for those people who've been interested, we've had a special meeting after the plenary sessions where we'll invite everyone who's put their names down on the list of attendees for this, and use some of the RDA groups to try and get the message more broadly. If there is interest in having a meeting of people who want to spin out a group, to do that, have a conversation about how it might look, might result in a birds of a feather kind of meeting at the next plenary, or any other approach, really. If you're, well, even if you're not particularly interested in being in some spin out group from this, it'd be great if you can put your names and contact details down in the collaborative notes. But we can certainly take steps to try and arrange a meeting for that, and see if there's people who are willing to take those kind of spin out groups further. Don't know if any of the other co-chairs want to say anything, or that answers the question, or anyone's got any follow-on suggestions.
Yeah, and I think we'll also probably, because I think we'll be looking to have a session in Costa Rica. So in the next couple of months, we'll be looking to define a topic for the next session. So again, if people put their names down, then you could participate in those discussions as well.
Okay, great. So my contact details, they are in the collaborative notes. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to get you in touch with my colleagues or try to answer myself. So I think also there is the, let's say, landscaping service that could also help identify working groups that are already working on topics of interest. So I think you could also consider going this way. So yeah, please get in touch if I can help in any way.
Thanks, Matti. And yes, I did just post again in the chat the link to the collaborative notes document, especially for people that joined a bit later. If you have not already added your name to that list, please do so, because that's a great way to be able to follow up and see if there's interest in a follow-on working group. Thank you.
Yeah, and also, I mean, there was a number of really interesting topics which were touched on today, and just as I'm beginning to sift through them myself, I can imagine that we might choose one of the topics which came up today for more focus in the next session of this group, as opposed to some spin-out group. So if anyone else feels that something's come up today, like, which is really interesting, relating to both infrastructures, PID infrastructures, cloud infrastructures, any of those things, please don't be shy about suggesting further delving deeper into one of those topics in the next session.
There was actually a group already who met, this morning in UK terms, but it'll depend on where you are around the globe, about the importance of PIDs and especially in the kind of lower and middle income country context and so forth. So there are already conversations going on around this. If you're not already aware of them, so you might want to have a look at the PID group in the RDA as well. Any other questions? Oh, sorry, Rory. Yeah. Any other questions for any of the speakers, or ideas, or you, from your own perspective, kind of the challenges that you are finding if you are involved in providing infrastructure for the Global South or Africa or Latin America in particular?
Sorry, I would add another challenge for us.
Okay.
That is how to build a common regional infrastructure for data, research data storage, or like Zenodo, or like a really big infrastructure, shared infrastructure, without having a European Commission or some funding, regional funding, because we don't have that. So any effort that we are doing is sustained by the individual contribution of the countries, and due to the political instability or changes, or the government changes and policy changes in the governments, it's not so easy to sustain that commitment in time of the individual countries. So one of the main challenges that we are facing is how to, maybe you can grab some funding from the European Union and build the infrastructure, but the challenge is how to sustain that in time. How do you really pay for the servers, for the hosting, for the connectivity, and so on. We have our regional research and education network, which is Red Clara, and La Referencia is hosted in Red Clara, actually, and also the other national research and infrastructures, but still we need to have some kind of common funding and sustainability strategy to plan and develop a really good, reliable infrastructure for the future, for having that kind of data inside our borders without depending on other external or other regions providing those kind of services.
Maybe you've got your hand up. Do you want to come in here?
Can I say something?
Oh, I can hear you now. Yeah, I can hear you now. That's
Okay,
better.
yes. I
Great.
didn't know if you give me the.
Sorry, apologies to everyone if I'm mangling the pronunciation of your names. It's,
Oh, no problem, no problem. No, we all do that. Don't worry. Well, I was going to say just what Lautaro just said, that for us, I think a challenge, and I think in all the global south, is sustainability. Because first of all, we are beginning, and we have do a lot of progress on building all those infrastructural beat all the structural challenges that we have. But sustainability is not only that you do an investment to do some kind of structural advance in your university or in your country. You have to keep the people that will work with that. You have to manage it. You have to be able to change the interoperability of that infrastructure. And we, especially in Latin America, we are not mentioned by our great capacity to build in the strategic plans. Then that happened a lot to us. That comes an administration, could be in a country, in a university, in an institute, that build up all that infrastructure and give call people to come and work and all that. But the next one, that means 5 years later, that change, and all the policy change, and all the. Then, as Lautaro, you have in Europe or in other regions, when you have that plan, that strategic plan that is regional, and the view is for the next 15, 20 years, you can manage to get to the sustainability. But for us, it's quite a different case, and I think it's a big challenge for us to sustain that.
questions. I mean, sustainability is clearly an issue, and it's not just about, some of the challenges aren't just infrastructural, but also having that kind of dependable, longer term kind of support and investment, I suppose. And that's clearly going to be one that is hard for the RDA to overcome, maybe with enough collective kind of recognition of the issue, it might become a little easier. But do we have any other questions, comments, suggestions?
Sorry, I was just wondering if Muliaro maybe had a perspective on the sustainability challenge, and how the African Open Science Platform's addressing that, because I guess the challenge must be coming up there too. So.
Yeah. Yes. This is the very essence why we picked on the data that is captured around SDGs. You know, just to amplify that, if anything, it is the sustainability itself which is very dodgy, even to collect data around it. So if we can begin by just making sure that That's our view, that if we can begin by utilizing the data indicators that have been collected around SDGs, would in itself prepare us better to tackle any other activity that we do in a sustainable manner, because then we'll have understood the framing around what we are operating. Largely, we ignore the indicators about sustainability, and we do something, and then we ask ourselves how it's going to happen sustainably. So as you've heard now, Nairobi, we've had a lot of flooding, and it appears like it hit us like something we didn't know. But if you look around, there's been a lot of data, even 2 years, 1 year ago, that would have informed preparedness to address this thing. So the question for us who are promoting open science is to try and be more friendlier and have our references around all those indicators in whatever sector that we are working with. But bringing us to the infrastructure point of view, I think we need to grow them within the capacity, to grow with them, rather than just to get capacities that we are not able to handle. So that is one area that we think, and I would say RDA is very well placed to, with the experience and the vast exposure it has had and built, to kind of handhold these initiatives that are emerging in African continent. And why I say so is that they can actually be made sustainable, basically from the point of view of the knowledge and the experience and understanding that RDA and the community that it has. So for me, I really want that at every event, please invite us, let's say what we have, and also let some of these interest groups be pointed to look at some of these things that we think are a priority, and we may not have the experience, critical mass needed to join the hand, to handhold each other and move them. Because, you know, the epidemic has taught us that these problems cannot be localized. Wherever they will begin, we must begin to solve things with an understanding that we are one big community. Thank you.
That sounds like a wonderful speech in which to end the session, but we do still have 10 minutes. So if anybody does have any follow-up comments, there's still an opportunity.
Yeah, thank you.
Try topping that though. Okay, well, I promised a slightly anticlimactic ending, and that's what we've got. So I will. We don't have a topic determined for this group for the forthcoming plenary in Costa Rica, although I'm sure many of you are already looking forward to getting there if you can. Oh, we do have another hand up which I missed. So Rosalie, is that a very temporary hand, or do you have any comments or questions?
Sorry, that was a temporary hand,
That
but
was a
I
temporary
was
hand, not
trying
to
to
worry.
give a clap to Joseph's comments because they were so on target. So
Yeah.
so just
Thank you. Well
Finding
received.
comments.
Thank you very much.
Seconded. Cool. Okay, so we will arrange if there's interest in potentially spinning out and continuing this conversation, we will look to arrange a meeting online, as mentioned. We will probably also have another one to think about the topics we might want to look at when it comes to Costa Rica. We will almost certainly be making some kind of proposal for that at some point. So as mentioned already, if you've got your name and address in the collaborative chat for this meeting, we will get in touch. We'll email the whole kind of Ardari interest group, because of course not every Ardari interested person who's signed up to be a member of the interest group can attend every one of these plenary meetings. But we'll look to set something up at a suitable moment. I'll probably organise a doodle poll or some such to try and maximise the number of people who can attend at any given time, and we can have a conversation about that as well. I think that's just about it for this particular session. Do any of my co-chairs want to say anything, or anyone else who's in the room? Well, in which case, I'd like to thank you all, particularly to our speakers, for offering three very different, fascinating perspectives, different challenges and everything else. So let's try and do those silent claps if we can find the right button. And yeah, thank you very much for joining us, and I hope you all got something out of this meeting today.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Bye for now.
Everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.